Zion Williamson is ranked 47th on Locked On's top 100 NBA players for this upcoming season. Too talented to be that low, but too unreliable to be higher. So does that make the ranking right? It's the Tuesday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Tuesday, and we're going to start breaking down the Locked On top 100 upcoming top 100 players for the upcoming NBA season. We are starting with Zion Williamson, who's ranked 47th. Too low, too high, correct. We'll break it down in today's episode. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And don't forget, you can watch Locked On Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app today to get started from FanDuel.com. So let's get into this one. I've been excited for this here because all of the Locked On NBA hosts have kind of collaborated on Locked On NBA's top 100, voted on by the hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network on the NBA side. So these are the local experts that cover the league on a daily basis, know their team better than everybody else as well. By the way, you can find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts here. And I want to start with Zion Williamson, who's ranked 47th. So I'm going to ask you, let me know in the comments down below. Too low? Too high, because this number captures a tension that I've talked a lot about here on Locked On Pelicans over the past week or so. You know, Zion can elevate this franchise, but he also kind of keeps it stuck. So putting him at 47 kind of feels both unfair and exactly right at the same time. And it's why building around Zion Williamson is uniquely hard. We'll also get into what Zion needs to do to be a top 20, top 25 player next season. So let's start with the obvious, right? This comes down to talent versus availability. And there's clearly some lenses voters use when they rank players. And Zion fails that availability test, even if he aces the talent test. Look, that's why he's 47th, right? When Zion is on the floor, he is as unique and dominant of a player as we see there. There's a level of finishing at the rim that we get from almost nobody else in terms of scoring in the paint. He creates gravity, creates open shots for teammates, forces defensive schemes to entirely change. That ability alone, right? I haven't even touched on here some of the numbers. I don't even need to, right? It's just obvious here. When Zion is on the court, the Pelicans offense literally jumps up 8.2 points per 100 possessions. That's the 95th percentile. That means 95% of NBA players do not have that impact in terms of on-off numbers. His ability to get putbacks and second chance points is almost second to none in the league, right? On ability alone, he's easily inside the top 25, maybe inside the top 15, or at least in that conversation. But these rankings, as some of the other players I'll tell you, definitely punish unavailability, right? Me and other voters are kind of pricing in missed games, not showing up in the playoffs if you don't make it there, right? If that's kind of like a tax, there's a heavy availability tax placed on Zion Williamson. What this says is like, yeah, your peak when you're playing is truly something special, but are you going to be able to deliver it consistently? Not just one season, but over multiple seasons? The answer to that has just kind of been no. So that's the paradox around Zion Williamson. I talked about it last week when I was reacting to the the Locked On Pelicans listener survey here, the fan survey. I hadn't actually fully seen the Zion number just yet here, right? Zion's too good to be outside the top 50. He's 47, but he's too fragile to be in the top 20. 47 kind of mixes both sides of that into one. I ranked Zion 50th. I truthfully wasn't sure what to do here. They told us factor in availability, what you expect from them in terms of missed games and things like that. And Zion has just not proven to be a top 25 player based on, again, availability alone. And those are the type of things that knock him down, right? Minutes, load management concerns here. Is he going to show up on a night in, night out basis? Those are the type of things. The numbers bear this out, and I find it kind of interesting with some other players, right? Joel Embiid is 52. At his peak, is Joel Embiid a better player than Zion Williamson? Joel Embiid, whether correctly or incorrectly, won MVP, right? He is as dominant, unique of a big man, more traditional than Zion Williamson, but as dominant of a player than I think I have seen. But the problem is he misses so much time. What is it going to do to that Philadelphia 76ers season? And that's kind of the problem, right? But Zion's also still ahead of guys like Rudy Gobert, who is 51 in this, which I think is kind of interesting. Larry Markkanen's 55, right? Markkanen's a great player here, but he's got some injury issues too. And does he impact winning at a very high level? And the answer might be no to that sort of thing. And then I find it interesting that Derek White is 37. 10 spots ahead of Zion Williamson for a guy that, I don't want to call him a role player, but, with Boston, he's not been a top 2-3 player on that team. Very good player, very impactful player too. But it's kind of interesting that he's ranked so far ahead, and that's probably the reliability of Derek White and the winning, I think, from him here. And so when you kind of look at this, Zion's not buried on this list, right? 47 feels more conservative, not a complete dismissal of his talent, of availability. But if you're trying to win games, are you going to build around Zion, or and we'll talk about this when it comes to the Pelicans next, or do you go in other directions? I was really curious to see where he was going to fall in here. I thought me putting him at 50 was actually going to rank him too low compared to others, but I see it was kind of clearly right in line. This is about 60 or so folks, 45 to 60 people voting on these rankings. And it's interesting to kind of see where Zion came out in all of this with, and I trust our Locked On people. I think they're pretty smart. A lot of y'all say you listen to other shows, you find Locked On hosts knowledgeable, all that. I see it in the comments. So it's interesting to see him come in at 47. That kind of, again, sums up the Zion paradox here. 47, being ranked 47 is a couple of things to me here, I think. One, it's a warning. Zion's career is not gone the way he wants. The Zion Williamson era has not gone how we want to see it here in New Orleans. But it's also it warns the franchise that the player needs to be available, right? But it's also an invitation because Zion Williamson has the opportunity to change the biggest thing holding him back, and that is availability and some playoff impact too. We'll get into that a little bit more in the third segment, but I want to get into kind of building around Zion and why, again, one of the big feelings around the Pelicans is they are stuck. Let's talk about that when it comes to Zion Williamson. That's coming up next here in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. It's back, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because, look, however you want to bet, it's going to fit. Do you like the player props? You've got them. Do you want to build a same-game parlay and maybe get a bigger payout? You can do that. Live in-game betting as trends unfold, injuries unfortunately happen that shift the flow of a game. You can get in on those updated lines to the moment here. So it just makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching the Saints or just kind of keeping an eye around the league or on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Go to FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Also, shout out the international listeners. There's a lot of y'all. It's really cool to see how kind of worldwide the Pelicans are. So I appreciate you all tuning in and making Locked On Pelicans part of your day. For your second listen, it's Locked On Saints. Saints not opening well in terms of the betting lines for their second game against the San Francisco 49ers. Ross Jackson is going to make sense of everything black and gold. Make Locked On Saints your second listen today. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's get back into Zion Williamson being ranked 47th. The Pelicans, that's the highest Pelicans player ranked, 47. We'll get into a couple more later in the week here. I want to look at Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, see if Jordan Poole's on there. We're going to break it all down in, this week over a couple of shows here. And also, maybe I've got a show idea planned. I don't have it planned. I'm going to let someone do the planning for me. Something. I don't want to tease it yet because I think it could be absolutely terrible and I don't want to risk doing this. So I have something that may or may not come. That's just a future thing. You might see if you can guess what it is in the comments down below. So building around Zion Williamson, 47, kind of right smack dab in the middle. That's where I put him because again, he's so talented, but it hasn't amounted to anything, right? This is the problem for the front office and the coaching staff. Zion Williamson to this team is probably too valuable to trade away. He's who's going to elevate your ceiling, who's going to help get you into the playoffs, especially in a year where you don't have a first-round pick next year, your own first-round pick. So you need to win because being bad does you no good. But it feels just unreliable to build a stable contender around. And this kind of creates this weird gridlock feeling of mid with the team or them just kind of being stuck, right? You can't trade Zion Williamson and expect a haul in return or for you to be good next season, potentially. There might be enough talent to sneak in as a play-in tournament team, but your overall ceiling, it's not going to be good, right? You're not a title contender next year without Zion Williamson. If you have him and he's playing, maybe not a title contender, but you can win a first-round series potentially, depending on who it is, right? He's so unique that when healthy, he can be a top 10, top 15 player on the team. Here's the top 15, by the way. Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, Luka, Steph Curry at 5, Anthony Edwards at 6, Victor Wembanyama at 7, Jalen Brunson at 8, Donovan Mitchell at 9, Jason Tatum at 10, which I think is too high because of his injury, Kevin Durant at 11, LeBron James outside the top 10 at 12, Tyrese Halliburton at 13, Anthony Davis 14, Cade Cunningham at 15. Anthony Davis can absolutely sneak in to the back end of that kind of 10 through, 11 through 15 range. Absolutely. With how good he can be, particularly with some of the injuries to some of those guys, right? So you have that opportunity that he can be a game changer for you, but you trade him. You don't have a guy that kind of sniffs top 15 potential yet. Maybe someone gets up there, but no one's close to it. That's a big blow to the team. But if Zion can't be counted on for 65 plus games, regularly, right? Here's where it holds the team back. What if you're worried about him getting injured? This goes to the luxury tax. Why would you pay the luxury tax? Why would you spend a ton around a guy that you worry might not be playing? You could end up paying a massive tax bill to watch a team that underachieves because its star player in Zion Williamson missed 3 months. Right? There's times when paying the tax is worth it. There's times when it's not. And last week I talked about, it's not like every team's always paying it, right? The Houston Rockets paid it twice, something like that. It's interesting to see that because you got to kind of time when you're going to do that, particularly in a smaller market. And if Zion's not playing or you're worried he's going to get injured, how can you justify going all in if it's we're going to end up paying a ton of money and it's going to have nothing to show for it, right? But then it also gets to kind of a more philosophical question of, do you build a system around Zion Williamson's unique game, or do you plan a system that compensates for his absences? And the Pelicans are trying to do a little bit of both here. Jordan Poole kind of can be an in-between guy on both those things. I've talked a lot about two timeline approaches, but it's two different Zion approaches too, I think. And that, again, you've got to kind of commit to your path, whatever it might be, and you go down that road for better or worse. If you're trying to do two things, build around Zion, but also plan for when he's not playing, maybe you can pull it off, but that's pretty difficult, right? And I think that's kind of a problem. Again, you're stuck in no man's land here. That lends to this idea of a team being stuck, a team being mid. Then it goes to your front office in-season adjustments. Do you chase immediate wins or preserve flexibility? The vast majority of y'all said preserve flexibility in the fan survey here, right? That's not exactly a strategy. That's just a symptom of being scared of getting further behind or being stuck even more. So that's why nationally, I think people view the Pelicans as kind of stuck. A team that has a good ceiling, good enough ceiling, but that can't be counted on. And that perception is going to feed to low rankings, low national TV interest, and even skepticism from free agents, the type of thing that snowballs a little bit here. And that's not great, right? And it's interesting because there's some irony in these rankings. Paolo Banchero is 23rd. He's got a bunch of injuries that he's dealt with, right? He missed half the season last year. Aaron Gordon is 44, so 3 spots ahead of Zion Williamson. He's not the number one option on that Nuggets team. Is he even the second option on that team? That's what's kind of crazy about that, right? But he plays, and that matters. Domantas Sabonis is 32. That one kind of blows I'm not a big Sabonis guy, as y'all have heard me say on this show. But he plays. He plays consistently. I don't think he elevates a team. I don't think he's going to help you win in the postseason, but he's 32. That's 50, I did good math there, 15 spots higher than Zion Williamson because he plays. That availability matters so much. And that's why a lot of people have the Sacramento Kings, even if I don't see it, most people have the Sacramento Kings ahead of the Pelicans in their kind of predicted Western Conference standings. And this creates a ton of difficulty for someone like head coach Willie Green. You're making it harder on him to potentially grow and be a better head coach, right? Again, do you create a team that plays to Zion Williamson's strengths, but that also still has an identity offensively when he's out, right? That's not easy to do. That is a really tough line to try and straddle between the two sides. And so everything comes back to, in my opinion, does he play? If he had been playing and this team had been making the postseason, maybe not getting too far in there, but winning a playoff series, say once or twice, does that make ownership, this team, want to invest more in the team, want to go into the luxury tax or something along those lines? And would that then change the perception about ownership? Would that change the perception about head coach Willie Green and all of those things, right? Zion makes the Pelicans feel stuck because every strategy is every path, every strategy is all conditional on a single variable. Will he be healthy? And until that changes, the team feels like it's living in neutral right now. And again, the fan survey really bore that out. Now, it's not entirely Zion, but it primarily is, right? There's definitely David Griffin, Joe Dumars factoring into this, Willie Green factoring into all of this, right? Alvin Gentry, Stan Van Gundy in some capacity have an influence on this as well. It's not a mess, but this has got to change, right? So how does it change? How does Zion get to be a top player next year? It's not as simple of an answer as you think, and I'll explain. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Become an everyday. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget, you can watch Locked On Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every weekday at 10:30 a.m. We've got Locked On Saints at 10, Locked On Pelicans at 10:30, Locked On LSU at 11, and Locked On SEC at 11:30. You got a 2-hour block of Locked On the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. If you got an office, you got a waiting room, something like that, throw it on the TV there for that 2-hour block. So, for your second listen, by the way, go listen to the Locked On Top 100 shows, part of Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. It's also wherever you get your podcasts to hear the full rankings. We'll talk more about other Pelicans either in tomorrow's show or the day after. Remains to be seen. I want to see if I can make this kind of weird, fun idea kind of work too and record something a little bit different, but we'll see if that ends up working out. So let's look at how things can change for Zion Williamson, right? Like, look, we can be blunt about this. The paradox ends one way, through availability, which then translates into postseason impact. You know, the fan survey kind of nailed the stakes. If Zion Williamson plays 65 plus games, basically 70% of fans say the Pelicans can make the playoffs. And over a third of y'all, 36.6%, say they can win a first round series. Those are the numbers that you want to remember. When he plays, team goes up, right? Simple as that. So here, you want to change the perception, play 65 plus games. It's a realistic threshold. That's the awards threshold here that shows durability. It's going to let the team kind of find a rhythm and have an identity around it. And it kind of removes that. We're going to do this every year on Locked On. It's going to remove that availability tax that people really put in here. But it also, there needs to be more from Zion too, right? You know, if you really want to elevate, say, into the top 15, not just top 25, where if Zion plays 65 plus games, he's in the top 25 easy. Let's go higher than that. We don't need to shoot that low. Let's go up more, right? What about winning in clutch situations? Something that the Pelicans have really struggled with. This is the easiest way, and the everydayers have heard me say this a lot. Pelicans want to add 5+ wins to like pick any year over the past couple of years. You want to add 5 wins to the team, close out games better. Just win a couple of clutch games in a way like better than you have. Better fourth quarters, something along those lines. 5+ wins to pick your season. It's the easiest way to do that, right? But hitting game-winning shots, you know, beyond the wins, right, creates signature moments, things that people truly remember. And that's something that Zion, you know, doesn't quite have. He's got some fun moments. The 360 dunk against the Suns, that one against the Toronto Raptors with a picture of all the Raptors players being like, what is going on? All of that, right? But what about like a crazy game-winning shot or consistently delivering when it matters and kind of building that sort of reputation, right? If he wants to take it to another level, win a first-round series. Win a first-round series, and Zion might be in the top 15 next year, right? Assuming he's playing and help get them there in the first place. No one believes in this team next year. Well, the Pelicans do, fans do, but you get what I'm saying. Outside of New Orleans, for the most part, no one believes in the Pelicans at all. If you can win a first-round series for that kind of plucky underdog team that nobody believed in, people remember that, right? A single playoff push like that can kind of rewrite history. That's going to completely change the perception here when it comes to it all. You know, the other way that Zion can really elevate kind of his stock, his, I don't want to say individual brand, but you get what I'm saying here. His kind of perception of him as a player is on the defensive side of the ball. We really saw it last year. He was good defensively. Like, I'd argue he's better than good defensively. Like, I was very, very impressed with him when he was out there on the court. You know, let me see if I can find some of the numbers here for Zion Williamson. When he was on the court, their defense was about 2 points better in the half court per 100 possessions. Normally, you wouldn't say the defense is better with Zion on there. Now, defense and offense are interlinked, so it's not like Zion is, you know, necessarily doing some of these things like kind of by himself and all of that. But he definitely elevated the team in a very positive way. Sorry, it was 3 points overall per 100 possessions. It was 2 points in the half court, 3.1 overall. They were better with him defensively on the court than off. And again, some of that comes from his offensive ability too, kind of factoring into that. As I've said, they're interconnected. But he looked good. He was engaged on the defensive side of the ball in a way that we had never seen him before. Let's see that again. If he can do that while delivering like he did offensively, which you could argue is the best we've ever seen him in terms of offense, the per 36-minute numbers, he's on a minutes restriction, so it remains to be seen if he can exactly do it over, 36 minutes. He played 28.6 minutes per game. That is, the second lowest of his career after his rookie year, right? And by a good bit at that point too. But per 36 minutes, the average kind of minutes a starter plays, it's actually a little bit less than that now. 31 points per game, 6.7 assists, 9 rebounds, while getting to the line 10 times and having a field goal percentage of basically 57%. That is insanely good. I can't tell you how insane those numbers are. That would have put him second in the NBA in scoring. Put up those kind of numbers. It don't need to be that, but can you get to 28 points per game with the impact that he has and lead this team? It's going to make everything a whole lot better, right? The Zion Williamson paradox is solvable. Play 65 plus games, get some meaningful playoff performances, and that number from 47 turns into something much higher next season. Right? I think the 47, I voted him 50 again, kind of captures everything about Zion and this team in one statistic. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. We'll look more at the NBA's top 100 in tomorrow's show or the show after. We'll see. It's coming when we look at Trey, Herb, Jordan Poole, and the others on the team that any of the rookies make it. I'm looking forward to talking about all this. It's a lot of fun. So I appreciate y'all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLAJake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. See y'all tomorrow.